Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be going over my current builds that I use in-game on my Titan, but a lot of this information can be used for your Hunter, your Warlock, anything really, because a lot of it just has to do with matching your mods to what you're doing and that sort of thing. So this is what I use for basically every activity in the game, from Crucible, from doing the Nightfall, raids, you know, speed farming ordeals for materials, or maybe, well, not anymore, but speed farming, nightmare hunts for umbral engrams, that sort of thing. But basically, a lot of it is centered around you using Bottom Tree Sunbreaker with Phoenix Cradle at not so much the core. The core of the build is, of course, the mods you're using and your loadout. You always want to match your, your reloader perks with whatever weapons you're using. So for right now, I have an auto rifle and a fusion rifle equipped, so I'm going to have, enhanced fusion rifle loader, enhanced auto rifle loader, that sort of thing. And if you don't know where to get enhanced reloader perks or, enhanced other perks, like enhanced unflinching, you get them from turning in or doing pinnacle activities like raids. Pretty sure you get them from trials, from the going flawless from the flawless chest. I got a lot of mine. I'm sure most people get a lot of theirs from doing Iron Banner and doing token turn-ins. You get a lot of them from that. It's a really great way to farm for enhanced mods, doing token turn-ins for Iron Banner. So definitely do that next time that comes around. But a lot of this build is centered around the Charged with Light mechanic that was added in a few seasons ago, in Season of Dawn, or whatever it was called. Now, I do use a couple different spenders when it comes to Charged with Light. So any of the Charged with Light mods are going to be green for gaining the charges of light and yellow for spending them. So I have High Energy Fire here, which is my spender that I use most of the time. And majority of the time I'm using High Energy Fire, because it even works in Crucible. Not as much, but it still does. But again, a bonus to weapon damage, but after you defeat a target, it consumes 1 stack, and there is no grace period with that. So if you kill or defeat 2 targets back to back, like bam bam, it will take away both of your stacks of Charged with Light. And unless you run another mod like Stacks on Stacks, or this one, Supercharge, you can have 2 additional stacks of Charged with Light, up to a maximum of 5. You only have a maximum of 2, unless you're running another mod like this, Supercharged, or Stacks on Stacks, that sort of thing. So just something to keep in mind. And I don't run any mods like that. I run kind of the basic version of the Charge with Light, gaining charge, spending charge mechanics, because I like to use other mods in my armor as well. Now, you'll see in this build here that because my chest piece is basically High Energy Fire and enhanced unflinching rifle aim, the seasonal one, that's just a very generic rifle class weapon, unflinching, I don't really switch out my chest piece that often unless I have to switch it out to an exotic. So I know yesterday's video was centered around Phoenix Cradle, and it is probably the most underrated exotic in the game. But there are times in raids where you might actually have to switch to Code of the Protector to go Ward of Dawn. Let's say you're the only Titan in your raid group, and you're doing a Guard of Salvation, and you really need Ward of Dawn, right? It's no fault, So you can't be a Sunbreaker all the time. Sometimes you have to do what the group wants you to do, right? So we're going to put on, we're still, in this scenario, we're still using 1K voices, so we're going to match our scavengers to the weapons that we're using, but we're gonna equip a exotic if we need to that would benefit this loadout a little bit more. So let's just go with Heart of Inmost Light, because I don't have the bubble specific exotic on me right now, but that's fine. That doesn't matter. The point of it is to make sure that you just are going to use something beneficial. You don't even have to use an exotic if you're using Ward of Dawn, really, if that's kind of your only goal. You can even use something that's going to heal you if you need to, get out of a sticky situation in a raid. Heart of Inmost Light is good for just passive ability regen, so it's kind of like your go-to if you don't know what to throw on. Heart of Inmost Light as a Titan can just be that exotic that you throw on there. But just kind of make sure that your loadout goes with what you're doing. So, Let's switch back here and go to our basically default. So if I'm just out and about doing whatever, I'm not using a sword, because that's a very specific thing that I will change up most of my armor for, is using a sword. I'm going to gain charges of light by picking up orbs of light with taking charge, and you get up to 2 stacks. But one thing you have to be careful with taking charge is that even if you are supercharged and you have 2 stacks of charge of light, you can still pick up an orb and consume it for no benefit to you because of taking charge. Just be careful. Make sure that, you know, if there are some orbs laying around, you're supercharged, you have 2 stacks of charge of light, just maybe kind of avoid them. Don't pick them up. And that way, you know, if you do drop a stack of charge of light or something, or use your super, you can go back and pick up those orbs and gain the benefit of actually picking them up. The other gain mod that I use is usually Empowered Finish. Now, this does not work in Crucible, obviously because you can't use your finisher on an enemy guardian, but you consume 1/10 of your super to become charged light, which I think is a good trade-off, because using your finisher doesn't really come into play all that often unless you're using a finisher for a specific reason, like this. So if you need to be charged with light and you're not able to produce an orb, you just want to finish off an enemy real quick, use a finisher, wham bam, 1 stack of charge with light. Now, if I am going to be using a sword, I do change up some stuff. It's going to depend on what I'm using as my secondary, because when I'm using a sword, I'm usually not going to use it to clear ads. I'm going to use it for boss damage. So I'm going to actually switch out my chest piece for this arc one here, and it has Lucent Blade on it. And Lucent Blade is a new mod from this season, so you have to get it from the Prismatic Recaster. And what it does basically is it consumes a stack of charge with light only when you damage an enemy with a sword. So you can be out there slaying people with, you know, your auto rifle, your fusion rifle, your shotgun, whatever you're using. But as long as you don't damage anything with a sword, you will keep your stacks of charge with light. And that's kind of the benefit to using this if you're doing something like speedrunning ordeals and you just want to nuke down the boss as quickly as possible. Swords and Lucent Blade will definitely do that for you, because what they do is when you damage an enemy with a sword, you get increased sword damage for 5 seconds. So, very reasonable, very good mod for just nuking enemies down quickly. And I have Inferno Whip in there really just for fun. You can switch it out to Enhanced Unflinching again. Doesn't really matter. We can even go double Enhanced Unflinching. I don't think those mods really do anything anyway, but that's what I would do. Then I'd switch out my helmet for something that has like Sword Ammo Finder, but it still has Taking Charge in it. Now, one thing that I will say, let's just go back to my, let's call it a standard loadout here, one that I would use in, let's say, Crucible. In Crucible specifically, you'll notice here my stats, they're not really spiky. They're actually kind of pretty even. You know, I have Tier 8 Resilience, or 80 Resilience, I have Tier 7 Recovery, Tier 6 Intellect, and 5 and 4 in Discipline and Strength, respectively. But I can get, you know, 3, sometimes 4, if I get a super high kill game. And that's not from my Intellect stat alone, it's also from what I have on my class item. So your class item is very important when it comes to the mods that you put on it, especially for Crucible. If you're using a fusion rifle, you have the benefit of also being able to use Ashes to Assets along with Light Reactor. So if you get grenade kills and fusion rifle kills, hey, you're getting bonus super energy. If you're using a sniper rifle, you know, make sure you're using a Void class item and use Remote Connection, that sort of thing. If you're using a shotgun, like most of the people out in the Crucible, use Pump Action and Hands On. You know, it's good stuff. The unfortunate thing about, you know, if you're a sniper or a grenade launcher user, you don't really have another mod that's going to give you bonus super energy other than Dynamo, which has been broken in the past and has now since been basically nerfed into the ground. But it doesn't hurt, I guess. But in that scenario, I would just kind of maybe run a double of whatever you're doing. So either a double Dire Artillery or double Remote Connection. It's going to have diminishing returns and not double the effect of it, but it's still going to be something. So that's kind of what I do. That's what I base my build around. Now, most of this can be used for any subclass. Like I said, you want to be a Ward of Dawn for your raid team, go for it. A lot of it's just going to be based around building for the weapons you're using and getting something that's going to increase your damage output in pretty much any scenario. Now, as far as where to get high energy fire and taking charge, these were added in 2 or 3 seasons ago. And if you go into the collections tab, so you cannot acquire these the way that I acquired them. I acquired them through the seasonal activities when they were added in. But if you go down to the general tab and scroll over twice, when you mouse over it now, high energy fire, it says source unlocked by default. And what that means is that it should be unlocked for everybody. So even like new light players, this should be automatically unlocked for you. That's what I'm getting from that, because other things like general, let's see here, general reloader mods like fusion rifle, not that one. Where's one that's very generic? Here we go. Large weapon loader unlocked by default. You have that just automatically. Light arms loader, you have that by default, which means that you have them no matter what. Now, the enhanced stuff, you get those from Pinnacle activity packages, either completing a raid, doing trials, turning in Iron Banner tokens, that sort of thing. But regular stuff, earn rank up packages from Banshee 44. Or if you want to go here, Emperor's Blaze, acquired from the Menagerie aboard the Leviathan. But here it says just unlocked by default. So I think everybody has this. So I don't think that there's any sort of wall preventing even a new light player for doing something like this. Except for Lucent Blade, which is something that is new to this specific season. So I do apologize for how wordy this video has been. There hasn't been a whole lot of action, no high kill Crucible games, that sort of thing, but a lot of it is just explaining what I do in the game for my builds to maximize my slaying potential. So there you go. You have what I do for my builds. I don't go for spiky stats, because having spiky stats really in the scheme of things, it doesn't do much for you unless you're at like 100 intellect or something. But even so, I mean, I'm at tier 6 and I get 3 to 4 supers per Crucible game. 3, normally 4 if I absolutely slay it out. But yeah, that is it. So bottom line, just be smart with your mods. You do use stuff that's going to increase your damage. Make sure your reloaders and your scavengers are lined up. And for my case, if you're using Phoenix Cradles on a Sunbreaker Titan, make sure, if you're grouped up with friends in a fire team, call out where you're putting down your sunspots. If you're using if you're in Crucible, hey, I got a sunspot on A. I got a sunspot, between A and B, whatever. Call it out. If you're in a raid, or you're in a Nightfall, or even in Strikes, just derping around, be like, hey, I got a sunspot on me. It's not going to hurt to call that out. Get your teammates to come, if they want to. Run over the sunspot, get their ability regen cooking, and get some more weapon damage, that sort of thing. It's beneficial to everybody. But there you go. That's the video. Over the next couple days, I'm going to be working on a how-to Sunbreaker video. It's not going to be covering the top or middle tree Sunbreaker, because those are both terrible. It'll be covering bottom tree specifically. So if you want to learn how to be a siege breaker, definitely tune in for that. But it's going to be a couple days before that video is released, because I got a lot of footage to capture to give examples on things. I got a lot of, maybe even a script to write, which sounds pretty gross. I usually just wing videos with a general consensus of where I want to go. But yeah, that's it for this video. So if you liked it, leave a like on the video. I would greatly appreciate it. If you are new here, subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. But do not forget to have a good day, everybody, and I will catch you all next time.